So in this video today, I want to talk to you and share with you about the law of assumption, which was first introduced by Neville Goddard, okay? You haven't heard of him, Google him, he's fantastic. He's got a couple books out there, but The Power of Awareness, there's a chapter in there called the law of assumption. And what the law of assumption means, that's what I want to share with you today, is the law of assumption means is whatever you assume is true for you, okay? And all of our beliefs are assumptions, okay? At one point, they were an assumption that we did not question. We totally accepted it as true. And then because of that, we now believe things that we assumed. So a law of assumption is really important, and I want to share how you can use it around money, okay? Now, I'm going to give a business example because I'm in business and that's how I generate money. But I want to tell you just to share about like how I do it internally, okay? So I signed a client last November, and great client. And from the very beginning, I was like, this is going to be a great client. It's going to be a fantastic client. That's what I would say to myself. And then for months and months and months, that's all I kept saying. Now, about a month ago, they were to renew for the rest of the year. And so I was saying before the renewal, oh man, this is going to be so good. They're going to love working with me all year. It's going to work out so well. And so I kept assuming the best case scenario, okay? Now, because I was assuming the best case scenario and this client was going to stay, even though I'd never worked with this type of client before, it was very new to me. 2 weeks ago, I checked my bank account. I wasn't even looking. I think I was checking something else, a balance on something. And I saw a deposit of $20,000, which would be the renewal fee for this client. Now, what's crazy is that I didn't actually invoice the client so they could pay me. They just went ahead and paid me. And I've invoiced them later, which is fine. But that's the power of the law of assumption when you assume, because when you assume certain things around money, what happens is that those assumptions unconsciously link to the intelligence that everyone is connected to at some level. So now, I'm not saying that if I did a terrible job or we did a terrible job for this client that they would have renewed. I always assumed they would, and I always assumed we'd do an amazing job. So I had two assumptions working for me. One, we were going to create lots of value, do an amazing job. And two, they were going to renew and stay with us, not only this year, but for years. Now let me share another example. So that's what the law of assumption is, right? You're doing all this internally to create and manifest what you want on the outside. So here's another example. So about not even a week and a half ago, let's say a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I had a download or an aha moment where I was like, oh, I think I can market this in this way to this group of clients. And I believe it's going to work really well. Like I believe, I know, I feel, and I assume that it's going to work out extremely well. So with that assumption, knowing that we'll be clients, and this would be very profitable, but also very win-win for us and the clients that we were going to help. It's going to be extremely valuable for them, a lot of fair exchange between what they would pay us and what we would deliver. I assumed that I could write copy that would attract those clients and customers into sales conversations with me. And I started the marketing last Monday, not this past Monday, but last Monday. And on the Tuesday, I got an appointment. And I talked to the gentleman last week, and we had an amazing conversation. And so nothing happened. He didn't close. I didn't send an invoice or anything. The deal's not closed. But over the weekend, and I remember I'm trying to share with you what I do to use this in my life. Over the weekend, I thought, well, if I had closed this client, how would that feel? And then in my meditation, I would contemplate what it would be like working with this new client. He's a great guy. And so last night, I was like, well, if they were a client, I would be sending them a proposal. So even though we hadn't talked about like doing any business together, at this point, it felt good enough to go ahead knowing I could write an agreement or a proposal that they would then later sign. So I wrote it last night. And today I talked to that potential client, and we had an amazing conversation. And I just sent him the proposal because he asked for it. So again, I'm assuming that this client, this potential client, is going to close. And because I am assuming that, again, I'm not attached, but I'm assuming he's going to be a client. So it's something that you can be playful with, and you can assume things, and the more that you practice it, the better you get at it. And one other thing I'll mention is that when you assume things, always assume as if it was a memory. So it's not just like I assume that money's going to fall and millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars is going to come my way. I assume every step of the process, from like, I assume new leads are going to come. I assume I'm going to have great conversations. I assume that I got to write the proposal for the client. So I'm assuming every step of the way. And because I'm doing it in increments like that, it's not a big pill to swallow. I can assume that the next step is going to unfold. And so when you're doing this process, if you do some sort of meditation, which I highly recommend, to get into those deep, deep states so that you're in deep trance, but you're assuming and feeling at the deepest level. What will happen is, or what I suggest you do at that level, is almost think of it as like a memory. So like, oh yeah, I started working with this client. That was a client I signed, end of March 2021, and I so remember closing that client, even though it's in the future. I'm assuming that it's already closed. It's almost like a memory as opposed to something that I hope will happen. Okay? So it feels energetically, it feels different. You just feel more connected to it, and you can let it go, and you can have fun with it, and you can play with it. So that's kind of the game that I play as I'm, talking to potential clients or clients to renew. I assume the very, very best. I assume great service. I assume they're getting more than their fair exchange, and I assume we're getting the money. And because I do that, a lot of cases it happens. So what are you going to do or use the law of assumption for yourself? Where are you going to use it in your life? Let me know in the comments below. Is there a specific area around money where you can use it? And where can you chunk it down? Where can you break it down incrementally? Like, I assume I'm going to have an amazing interview, or I assume people want to employ me, or I assume for my business that it's going to have explosive growth, and then bring it down really small pieces, something that's tangible, but also something that you can use the law of assumption on. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Thanks for watching. My name's Steve, and we'll talk to you next time.